5 and onward.
Well, let's see what they decide to do during the drafting phase, the picks and the bans, as we are now into champion select for game number 1. First ban's going to be LeBlanc from Dig, Phoenix1, answering by taking Lee Sin off the table.
Yeah, Lee Sin, Chaser's most played champion. I'm expecting a possible Camille from Phoenix1 and a Graves, because they have not played either of those champions at all throughout the split.
Kha'Zix instead. Still thinking about the jungle, just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Kha'Zix was by far Inori's most played champion. So even though there have been substantial nerfs since then, that is still a smart ban as far as hitting his comfort early on.
Yeah, and if Phoenix1 start banning out the Graves and the Camille here to take away from Chaser and Ssumday, that will leave Rengar and Lulu both up, and then you get one of those. And remember, Inori, he loves playing the Kha'Zix as most played, but it's mostly because he can't get his hands on Rengar every game.
A little bit hard to always get the champion that you're known for causing a lot of havoc with. Rengar is going to be banned away along with Kha'Zix. Graves also banned. So many jungle bans this game.
Exactly. Already for potentially a 5th on the way, although I feel like the Lulu ban will be what you want to throw in here to keep it away from Xpecial. This will push Inori into his champion pool as well as Chaser.
Have to see what Phoenix1 decides to actually go with here, considering that first pick will go over to Dignitas, and that's going to be 5 out of 6 jungle bans.
Probably Elise here. Or sorry, probably the Lulu here.
Yeah, Lulu, Malzahar still on the table as well. So you can pick that and have a good support on the other side for Phoenix1. It's why they didn't go for the Lulu ban, because then Malzahar is probably first picked in that case.
Yeah, this also opens the door for things like Kog'Maw, which have seen some resurgence, not as much in pro play, but definitely when paired with Lulu can become pretty ridiculous.
We did actually see a Kog'Maw picked up in the Brazilian CBLOL finals earlier today. So there is some Kog'Maw out there.
Yeah.
There is some Kog'Maw, you never know.
And this is funny too, because you talked about the Kog'Maw. Great thing to have alongside that is the Ivern. I know Inori, last time we had really seen him before Meteos came in, he had played the Ivern, and it's locked in now. Might be going for it.
So I like this. When Phoenix1 bans the 3 junglers, they're building into the jungle pinch. And even though Inori's Ivern wasn't good, I personally still think Ivern is a ridiculous champion, especially if you want to start pairing it with a hyper carry or with strong lanes. You get level 6 on Ivern, you walk into a strong lane, you press your ultimate, you take the turret.
And I checked his solo queue. He's been playing it a lot, and this might be a bit of a redemption game for him, because when he last played Ivern, it was the game right before they brought in Meteos. He had a lot of issues, and the mentality of the team went down completely. So he playing the Ivern, it's kind of confidence for the team now, saying he can bring it back.
Yeah, we also have to point out that Phoenix1 had side selection for Game 1 as the higher seed, and they opted for red side. So knowing that they could have a triple jungler ban, knowing that they could get the Lulu first pick since that's what all the other teams do, to me, this looks like the draft is going as planned for Phoenix1.
This could all be playing into their hands, going for that redemption that you talked about for Inori. Kind of, it was a bad note getting the Ivern as the final game that he played for a while before Meteos came in, but what can he do against Chaser's Nidalee? That will be the question, as that is locked in on the side of Dignitas.
Both farm incredibly easily.
Yeah, I think that Ivern is a pretty good matchup into Nidalee personally. It's a champion that won't necessarily be able to assassinate through the Ivern shield. Also, if Nidalee is jumping in, it makes a very easy land for your root caller, which then blows up the Nidalee. So with 6 junglers off the table, I maybe would have wanted to see Chaser go with something like Olaf to pair with the Lulu, but instead he goes with the Nidalee, who's a much squishier, riskier option.
80 carries, both also locked in for the teams. Ezreal versus Ashe, and then Zyra, the final pick in this first part of the picking phase for Phoenix1. So the picks are going to be matched and mirrored. Bottom lanes and junglers. Expect solo lane focus here in the bans.
Yeah. And Phoenix1, they're actually having a Ashe Zyra bottom lane. A lot of engage here. There's a lot of potential for this bottom lane to make plays, bring the Ivern in early game as well. Whereas Team Dignitas, a little bit of looking for that scaling, looking for a little bit later in the game, because that's not as much as a bully lane. They're going to start taking a few CS loss.
Yeah, a lot of it will be the early jungle clear from Nidalee, but so much of this will be then dictated by the solo lane. So we've talked about the Zig versus Ssumday matchup. We've also seen Zig have so much success on Kled and get some bans against it later on into the split. We've even seen Kled played against him. However, on red side, we mentioned the second half of the draft is heavily favored for them. Not only do they get the first pick on the second half, they'll also get the last. So plenty of opportunities to either pick a power pick like Kled or get as a counter.
Yeah, and you can do things here like ban out counters to what you really want to first pick here, because Shen is still up. You could have another shield for somebody that's hyper carrying and becomes a very defensive composition. Or you can go for something like delaying it and go for a GP. We'll see.
Two different fighter-style top laners banned away by Phoenix1, trying to keep Ssumday away from that carry potential. Orianna and Ahri banned away by Team Dignitas, really targeting Ryu in this second part of the bans. Now Phoenix1 expecting to see a top lane pick here, leaving that counter pick option potentially open. Or maybe they leave it there to give a better matchup.
Nautilus.
Yeah, Nautilus is Ssumday's most played champion right now. That might be a takeaway. Also, kind of expecting a Cassiopeia with the Orianna banned out would also be another option for these teams. And Cassio is Keane's most played champion.
Yeah, it's very CC and utility focused so far from Phoenix1. No one will move when they can start an initiation in these team fights between Depth Charge and Ashe Arrow and Ivern, Root Caller, and Zyra. What they'll need as a last pick is something that can bring a lot of damage. So that's why I kind of like if Ssumday does go with Shen, because there is a low amount of damage. Being able to stack up some of those shields between Lulu and Shen is smart.
Yeah, Lulu and Shen together can create a very effective VIP protection duty type of a composition. Keep somebody alive. That CC is going to keep them there for a long time, but that doesn't actually make your screen turn gray.
Yeah, and going to the other side here with Dignitas locking in the Shen and Cassiopeia, I feel like Phoenix1 would like a Cassiopeia in this comp because it's consistent damage that you can protect and keep alive. This also means that Dignitas, you can't really pick Vladimir into this because it's a huge counter to it. The Cassiopeia would be able to beat him in lane and it'd be harder to get out. So they are going to go with assassination potential here instead.
Full pick comp is what you see here. Pretty much everyone can land a skill shot to set up a play, and then everyone can pile on with their chain CC. It's rare you see this much CC in a team comp.
Yep, but then you jump over to the other side. There's so much CC for Phoenix1, but there's a lot of protection for Dignitas as well. They have a heal, they have a shield, and then they have Lulu on top of that. So picking somebody off when they're grouped up is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, they're going to have to make sure that they're playing this together very synergistically, very much as a team, because if you only have one or two people there on the side of Phoenix1, the damage is not going to come out. It doesn't matter if they're locked down for 4 seconds. If you've only got an Ivern and a Nautilus there, nothing's going to come up. Phoenix1 has to make sure that they're working together, being that kind of team that, like we talked about, both these teams 7-3 in the second half of the split. So Phoenix1, of course, incurring those losses there towards the end. We talked about how Week 9 looked a little bit rough from them. For their sake, you've got to hope they're back in form.
Look at this right now, getting a preview of the late
goodness.
matchups. Graphics team's been using the prep time pretty well.
Graphics team is on point for the playoffs today in Spring Split 2017. Dignitas versus Phoenix1, game 1 of a potential 5 to decide which one of these two teams will get to move on to the semifinals, try to punch that ticket for Vancouver.
Remember, if you make the semifinals, you are guaranteed a spot in Vancouver, whether it's 3rd or 4th place or finals, and there's a lot of Canadians in this matchup here that really want to go.
Yeah, go back to the home field, go back, represent yourself, show how far you've come, and just bring the whole team with you.
Yeah, but let's be honest, it's cool to go to Vancouver, but the guys playing in the 3rd or 4th place match would much rather be playing in the finals.
They'd much rather be in there for that championship.
Long road for these guys as well, though. They have to win this just to make it to the semifinals, whether they'll play up against TSM or Cloud9, and so much of it does revolve around this matchup.
Absolutely does. These two teams both looking to prove that they are a serious contender for the potential of that 1st place spot, as Dignitas is deciding to move as a full 5-man squad into the bottom lane.
Yeah, this is something you see fairly often against Zyra, and you wonder if Stunt will fall for something like this since he is still a rookie in a higher pressure situation. A lot of times Zyra will want to push up in the lane just to get the seeds to spawn in that lane, and you're kind of trying to bait him into bullying off one person. Doesn't look like the bait has been fallen for, and he's still even getting plant spawns because he was patient and Team Dignitas has called off the play. Although, what's funny is if they would have been patient, that would have been a dead stunt. They could have taunted him with Ssumday if they'd stuck around in range.
Just a little bit too early on the back off. Didn't want to commit to it that hard.
Yeah, usually you'll stick around and then like 1 minute, 20 seconds is kind of your cutoff. So they could have been there until then.
Yeah, I'm actually a little disappointed in Team Dignitas for not sticking through on that.
If you're going to go cheese, you got to go full cheese.
Yeah, you do have to worry, though, that if they do that, your top side gets warded and you don't know where the wards are, and then Ivern cheese could come through. There's always possibilities around these types of things.
It's the worst thing when your cheese gets cheesed.
Yeah, if you're going to be running down there anyway, you're already vulnerable to wards. So to do it for that long and then pull off is a mixed call where it's not going to work either way. So disagree with that, but no actual repercussions for Team Dignitas early on.
Both junglers going to be starting on their blues this time around, so they'll end up on opposite ends of the map. Inori, we know that Ivern has the ability to be very effective at stealing away enemy camps as well, so we'll have to keep an eye on exactly what he's able to do this game.
Yeah, Inori's actually gone with pretty much the most conservative jungle start on Ivern. A lot of times you will channel on a blue buff as well as a regular camp, run to a next buff, and smite it immediately before circling back. Inori smited his initial blue, so he actually has to wait for his smite cooldown to come back up now before he could take anything else. So an incredibly conservative start for Inori.
Yeah, considering the last time he played Ivern, went for an invade, got killed, and the game snowballed from there against Svenskeren. I really don't blame him at all for going for a conservative start here.
You see the hawk shot there, fired off by Arrow, going to be spotting out Chaser as he moves towards his own red. Help P1 kind of keep an eye on what he's doing there, and the fan vote shows up with nearly 3/5 of fans voting for Phoenix1 to walk away with a win here. Ryu eats some Twin Fang damage, but Keane doesn't really have the mana to make that go any further.
Looks like Keane spammed out just trying to get harass onto Ryu early. You can see Ryu has already gobbled down both of his potions, so a little bit of success, but Keane has nothing left, and since the Nidalee's not ganking, he's just going to be pushed in for a bit.
Nidalee's one of those champions you do expect to see some early presence from.
This is the benefit of Inori's start, though, is the full clear at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Only champion who can do it this fast, going for a gank.
Put him top side, flash away from Ssumday to keep himself safe. But now with that summoner spell down, he might be that much juicier of a target for a return gank from Inori.
Yeah, but now Inori goes into the jungle, will clear plants, ward it up, and go for a scuttle crab here, most likely. And then we'll have even more control of this river in top half.
And we like seeing Inori getting involved a little bit in top side. It helps keep that extra power that Ssumday has in the lane, those stat advantages that you saw that he has over Zig under control a little bit more.
Yeah, Zig actually has the lowest jungle proximity out of all top laners in the entire league. He barely gets any attention, but there's an attention bot. Stunt got hit.
There, Stunt gonna be in some trouble here, flashing away. The damage comes through. First blood goes through. Now Dignitas having to try to get themselves away from this one. Dig looking to find that counterattack. Now can they get Zig? Taunted back into the fight, and he is gonna drop Dignitas with a 2-0 lead.
Super surprised that Zig completed that teleport, knowing that it was going to be matched by Ssumday. That adds insult to injury on top of First Blood, because now they have effectively lost 2 lanes early on in the game.
Yeah, as soon as Inori went top, they start making a play down bottom, and Arrow and Stunt, we'd have to see how that started off, because they were shoved up like you would expect that lane to be with the Zyra, but Stunt doesn't flash the initial spear when it's going to connect, and that costs him his life.
The damage absolutely intense from the side of Dignitas in that early play. Keane and Ryu. Yeah, Ryu's going to be tagged by some miasma, but still getting himself back. Has Inori nearby. I don't think Keane's going to be taking that bait anytime soon, though. Plenty comfortable with what his team got.
He does walk in a bit.
But now he's in trouble as Inori doesn't manage to get the setup he needs.
He was trying to flash Q off of the Syndra stun, but the Q went face first into a minion. Now he's getting attacked by Chaser.
Chaser flexing those muscles that Nidalee has in dueling scenarios, recognizing that, hey, there might be an Ivern symbol on this crab, but he can steal it away anyway.
So this is a spectacular start for Team Dignitas, and you have to wonder how well they're going to be able to transition this. The team play and the coordination is something they completely lacked early on in the season, but improved upon as the split progressed. So early leads like this against a team that is so pick-based and so CC-based, if they can get that larger lead, hit level 6 on the Lulu, and start living off of that Shen cooldown, it'll be very difficult for P1 to generate picks.
How do you kill someone through a wild growth and a stand united and a help picks and Nidalee heals when they are ahead?
Lots of damage.
Even more damage.
Even more damage.
Or just picks when they're not all there. That's the thing, you'd be able to keep them spread out, but we'll have to look into this pass.
Yeah, and we talked about how Dignitas have been playing better towards the second half of the split, and we've been noticing they've had more team cohesion and communication, but it's also, they play really well when they're engaged upon. They play defensively really well. They're actually one of the better teams, and they were, I believe, one of the first teams, if not the first one, to really jump on first pick Lulu blue side, and Xpecial just kept picking that up every time, because the counter was so good. They could just whimsy people when they jumped in, and then you didn't have anything, because the meta was kind of be proactive.
Yeah, it was Arrow who paused. He apparently is having some issues. We will get more updates with that when it comes. But to continue with that and look again kind of at the team compositions, this would theoretically fit within Team Dignitas' wheelhouse. They have a poke composition with heavy shields and low initiation, and the other team will be coming to them naturally because of all the CC. So it is difficult to actually pull your team through the game with an early lead when you don't have the initiation, but it has been what Team Dignitas has been most successful with.
Yeah, You think about the Lulu, the Tom Kench, it's always get engaged on and then counter. And it's been working really well for them. And it's even like Cassiopeia likes to kite backwards too. This composition is definitely built for those situations.
They're kiting backwards, they've got shields, they've got heals, and let's not forget about the zone control as well. You've got a Miasma, you've got a Spirit's Refuge. There's tools upon tools upon tools for Dignitas to put themselves in a successful position if Phoenix1 makes even a single misstep in coordinating that initiation that we talked about when we saw them lock in this heavy CC comp.
Yeah, and even if you speak more onto the coordination, you do have to wonder how this Phoenix1 roster can recover from a bad early game, because you look at the cohesion early on. We're going to watch this one more time, and it's pretty much just you mentioned, Stunt could have flashed this, but then when he got polymorph, he couldn't flash until afterwards, and by that point they've been able to catch up.
Exactly, he has no option at that point. Gets hit,
Nice
can't
peek back.
flash then from the Whimsy. He has to flash in that window. And that's honestly rookie mistake.
Yeah, and the completed TP, yes, Zig may have been able to get a kill onto Chaser, but even then it would have been traded 1-for-1. So not a very odds-on teleport for sure.
And we're talking about nerves, we're talking about rookies here. There's some guys in this that haven't played in the playoffs at all. Zig, Inori, Stunt have not played in a single playoffs.
I mean, how many games have Inori and Stunt played together? By the time Stunt came in, Meteos was in the jungle, and then Inori came in for the last week of the split, and they were playing Shady. So this actual roster has an incredibly small amount of stage time together. And you mentioned that Stunt, even though we're playing best of threes, just 9 games, that's about 4 matches, and maybe some change depending on the way the games fall. And that's it. That's all he has. And now he's going up against Xpecial, who's been playing since the first split of the LCS as far as who would be more impacted by playoff nerves.
Yeah, the nerve situation, those intangible elements of the game that you don't see on Summoner's Rift necessarily in terms of gold or items or kills or anything like that can actually have such a massive difference when there is kind of that element of doubt.
Yeah, and we've seen actually all 3 of the rookies for playoffs on P1 actually have missteps already. Zig had a misstep, Stunt had a misstep, and Inori with the flash, root collar, point blank into a minion.
And you wonder how this will impact Inori. He's in a very difficult situation now. Ivern is definitely a champion who plays far better from ahead, and I feel like is relatively difficult to play from large deficits. So on top of the fact that he already is being put in above Meteos because they have faith in him, how can he get back into it? He catches Chase.
He's still got one way too. Here comes Ryu.
In some potential trouble. They're going to be ulted for the Thunderlords. Press R, kill champion. Ryu puts himself on the board.
That's how you get back into it right there. You have to make some sort of play. Chaser tried to push his advantage too far. Ended up right in the root collar, and that's enough time for the collapse. And Ryu, he wanted to get there post-haste. He blew that ghost so quickly to get the movement speed after 2 seconds.
I mean, yes, it is a good way to get back in the game, but you don't expect to be making a play at your own wolves. Chaser should not have been there. It was already a channeled camp. No turrets are down. That's an incredibly deep counter jungle. Almost gives a gift over, and that should be great for the confidence of Inori and Phoenix1.
Yeah, Chaser just getting a little bit big for his britches in the enemy jungle that early, but still an advantage for Team Dignitas by about 1,000 gold overall. CS advantage bottom side for Lod over Arrow. And considering this is one of the matchups that we were talking about, Arrow, all LCS player, top 80 carry in the league, seeing Lod be off to an advantage this early is nice.
Yeah, so much of that with the early game can play bottom lane. This is going to be a 3v3. They're kind of pinched.
Exactly, flanked by the Nidalee here, but they can collapse on the Nidalee.
Pretty isolated, but Stand United is going to be used. Stunt in some trouble, having to run himself away.
There was an interrupt on Ssumday's ultimate there, and that was a triple root from Stunt to stop them from advancing.
Good interrupt from Zig in the top side, making sure Ssumday couldn't work his way into the fight. You can actually see the ultimate expended by Zig to make that one happen.
Yeah, a lot of ultimates burned there. Inori had also recently hit level 6, so Daisy had a large part in the disruption of that fight. Good on Stunt as well for landing the triple root. Knowing Shen ult is down as well as Nidalee being out of there, Inori's back in the game.
Inori trying to...
Doesn't have smite yet, but he wants
maybe
to
steal away that enemy blue. I needed about 7 more seconds to get it instantly.
Yep, Syndra's going to come by and just sit here and wait.
Yeah.
Blue's up, so somebody wants to come over here.
Yeah, a couple benefits they could get here. Depending on how patient they'd want to be, they're hoping to get a pick from Nidalee. Chaser's not going to go by, so they're going to end up just taking double blue.
Drive by on the blue, get buffs on both players. Very useful aspect of Ivern and the fact that they can both pick up that extra power boost. Yeah, Daisy's going to disappear for now as Inori continues to lay down those groves, set himself up to come back and farm a little bit later. P1 even though they fell behind a little bit with that play in the bottom side, not exactly the best way to start the game, not really allowing themselves to fall any further behind so far.
And they're also losing every lane at the moment in CS. Even the mid lane with Ryu versus Keane, he is down right now a decent amount, and Keane is even going to pick up this wave and have almost like a 10 advantage over him.
You would think that it would help that Ryu will have the blue buff and Keane will not, though.
Yeah.
Gonna give him some extra spam power, gonna make Keane have to answer to that. Makes things a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and Ryu has a kill too, so he roamed, he got out of the lane, but just seems like Keane's CSing has just been a little bit better. And across the board too, like this bottom lane, Laud and Xpecial having gotten kills onto Arrow, or onto Stunt, and that bottom lane alongside Arrow. This is a lane that you should really be winning as the Zyra.
I mean, I also got to say, at this point, when you have the tier and the call on the Ezreal, it's really hard to deny the Ezreal CS. He's not necessarily going to hard bully you, but when you're in this situation where Stunt is behind in levels, as well as Inori not having the strongest jungle control in that top side, you can definitely see how Laud and Xpecial have been allowed to push. But 90 CS at 10 minutes is a great start for the Dignitas bot lane.
And he said there's no excuses if this team, this roster of Dignitas doesn't actually make it all the way. It's a disappointment on his end. There's no external thing for him to blame this split. After he was on Envy and they lost in the quarterfinals, Laud made a big post about how next year it's the try-hard year. And he said that this is where he can't make any excuses.
And even the clip that we heard from him before this series today, he's saying, look, they're not really even on my radar. I mean, we'll beat them. This isn't a problem. I'm not worried.
And then he went on to say a bunch of things about how they are on his radar, and he
Yeah,
they're the top.
they're not on my radar, except when they are on my radar, but hey, they're not really that big of a deal anyway. Just trying to show that even when they're on his mind, they're not on his mind.
They're just a blip on the radar. They aren't actually a gigantic threat.
Well, Dignitas hasn't really been able to find any more opportunities, but now, Arrow onto Xpecial, follow-up CC gonna be there, Stranglethorns comes out, Xpecial getting himself away, now Laud having to retreat as well. Dignitas bot lane keeps that support alive.
Xpecial only level 5, hadn't been able to catch up on a lot of that experience. That generally means he's been roaming a bit more than Stunt has. So when Stunt hits level 6, smart of them to go all in at that moment. Didn't get the Ignite off during the combo though, which may have resulted in a kill.
Yeah, so it was kind of a situation where you can't have your cake and eat it too. Xpecial was going to be 6 after that wave, but Stunt was about 10 seconds away from having Ignite. So they had to all in without the Ignite, or else he chooses to all in with it, but Xpecial has Wild Growth by then.
Wild Growth, the health value from that going to be more than you get from the Ignite anyway. So not really an ideal situation waiting on that one. You got to respect P1 for going for that, even if it didn't work out this time around. 1,500 gold lead for Dignitas, slowly making that larger. 112 to 87 CS in that bottom lane. That lead continues to build for a lot of time.
Yeah, it's 1,000 gold over top of Arrow. Ashe and Zyra is a strong lane, but Lulu has always actually been a pretty good pick against Zyra, so they're really wanting some of the intangibles this lane brings. They need to be able to convert that into kills.
And Laud has a cull as well that's about 20 away from completing, so the early pickup of that is really going to help him get even further ahead in this game and get that Ezreal build online. He's not sitting on just the Zyra anymore. He's got that Mana Moon.
Yeah, this game in particular will be a test of one of the things we talked about in the pregame. Ssumday, when this team has been good, is actually on tanks who then kind of open opportunities for others. He's doing fine on Shen. The carries are going to have to be Laud and Keane. Laud is positioning himself to have a large amount of the team's gold. He's going to have to make that count for them to convert this into victory. Yeah, and Keane is also just up in CS, having a great laning phase from him. Again, he had the flash too.
Might have.
Max range spears
really
generally don't need to be flashed. Max range spears need to be juked, but Stunt is getting hit by them here. Something that was said in EU, if you have a mouse, you shouldn't be able to get hit by those. I remember that from the bot lane stream.
Well, Dragon Control, Phoenix1 pretty on top of taking those first Drakes as Keane slithers himself forward. Not going to kind of be found out by Inori, but immediately returns fire. Spear connects onto the Ivern as well. True Shot Barrage fired through, won't find anyone. Yeah, and you keep saying that, Spear connects. Chaser has actually been dialed in on these spears. Had that one blip when he tried to counter Jungle Wolves, but beyond that has had a spectacular early game on Nidalee. Ryu grabbing his own blue buff after the one that he acquired from the enemy jungle has now dissipated. Here comes Zig from the top lane, looking for Keane. Oh, good sidestep coming out from Keane there. He did not have his cleanse available. Remember, he popped it earlier, so if he did get caught out there, he was in a world of hurt. Chaser grabbing his own red buff. Just just moving on through, farming up whatever he can. Runic Echo's completed, as you saw when he tried to steal away the Infernal Drake that Phoenix1 got for themselves just a minute ago. And we also saw the stat showing up that Phoenix1 actually has over 70% first Drake control, so a team that really prioritizes and controls that objective well.
Yeah, some of those stats are, I feel like, a little bit heavily weighted towards the Meteos games, who was making Drake one of his primary concerns since he was a less proactive jungler from a game perspective, but was strong in the objective control. Good to see them able to get that first one here with Inori.
And you're talking about how Inori, not as objective focused, but more about getting those ganks off. He's the highest damage per minute jungler in the whole league, and also the highest kill participation in the whole league. So you expect him to be a part of these kills, but you don't really expect him to play something like Ivern, which is when the first time he played it, it was so unusual that he was playing it because Kha'Zix was right up his alley. And he's gone back to it now, so Inori, we're seeing a little bit more objective focus from him. Maybe he's learned a few things from Meteos.
It does feel strange to see the highest damage jungler in the league playing something that is essentially a support in the jungle.
Yeah, and Inori's been pretty vocal about how he's watched Meteos and learned a lot from him, and just even communication-wise and objective-wise, this guy knows the game so well that why not actually learn from him? So we're seeing a little bit of that as a result here.
Dignitas thinking about maybe making some kind of a move down here on bottom yet again. Chaser dropping some wards down. Just gets himself out.
Yeah, turret's already half HP from the bottom lane pushing in, so this looks like you just do a standard, bring your mid laner and jungler down here for a roam. You'll get the first turret faster. They aren't going to bring Keane, though. Keane is just sitting in lane, CSing.
Phoenix1's in a difficult position right here because they are a picked composition, which is behind in the game, against a Shen who has ultimate. So a little twitchy on that flash, had already juked the arrow with his arcane shift, but even if that had landed, you have to wonder if he'd be able to stay alive. Now he stays up here without flash.
Now he gets himself out of the way. Another arcane shift going to be used nicely. Spear comes in. Xpecial going to be soaking some damage. Laud gets himself ignited by Stunt, but gets out.
And these are always crazy situations, too, because if you watch the minimap, Ssumday's running away trying to look for a stand united position, and he's got one right now.
Now Arrow on the counterattack after Laud jumps in. True Shot Barrage going to be used. Stand United comes out. Arrow's going to be dropped down first. Laud still being chased as Daisy smashes him right down into the dirt. But Inori's in a spot where I don't think he's getting away anytime soon. Chaser and Xpecial with the damage.
And it really feels like Phoenix1 is pressing here. Instead of just trying to wait for the game to come to them, they have all these CC tools, so they consistently try and use them. They were able to interrupt the Shen ultimate, but that doesn't stop the shield. And the shield is still like a 3.5v3 when they have that bottom lane fight, on top of the goal disadvantage they're already facing.
And it feels like they're not just taking those tiny leads. They got the flash from Laud. Stunt says immediately punish it, immediately run up and try to get a root. And then they counter on Dignitas' side. Instead of waiting for a better setup, waiting for making sure Chaser isn't around, etc., it just seems like you said, they're forcing so hard. Right here. Arrow, this is after they had already gotten the flash out.
Yeah, and he's now completely out of summer spells, but even Inori decides to flash in to try and secure this kill. Yes, the ultimate is interrupted, but what's actually going to happen? Ryu actually stays bottom, going for Laud, knows he's out of summoners.
Laud trying to play up against this. I don't think you're outplaying anything when he's got that many balls on the ground.
At least he landed the Q.
At least he landed the Q.
More than R.
He got an E, he got a Q.
Yeah.
Wasn't completely the old.
All of the spells.
And I like this too. They swapped it up. What they did is they brought their mid laner to the bottom in a switcheroo here. They're going to put their bottom lane in mid and start pushing with that. So now they have reverse turret pressure where you were just... If the same thing is happening over and over again in a 2-on-2, go for a quick switch up, try to get something else. Maybe it's some turret damage here or there, but then the enemy, they answer by doing the same thing, and then you can keep running them around the map.
And also stylistically, this is where Ryu is more comfortable. He transitions to side lanes faster than pretty much any other mid laner in the North American LCS. So that's something Laud wasn't necessarily ready for. He had been missing off the map for a while, and he surprises Laud down bottom.
Keane looking for Arrow, looking for all that damage.
Woo. Redemption comes down just to make sure. Arrow's still healthy enough, but man, those Twin Fangs just got to be so careful. If Arrow's even out of position for an extra second, Keane can take him down.
That's a deceptive amount of damage. And Cassiopeia does so much if she hits a Q on you and can chase you down.
Abyssal Scepter 2 completed means that it's just going to be doing that much more damage. It's got the AP, it's got the magic resistance to deal with the Syndra as well. We're actually starting to hit that point where you will see more items coming online as the Blade of the Ruined King is done for the Ashe, Morello Namicon for the Syndra. And of course, you saw the redemption for the Ivern.
Yeah, this will potentially be the cost of all the laning tomfoolery Phoenix1 has been pulling off, as if this first turret falls. Game's still relatively close. They're keeping it there. The 1,000 gold injection can help break it open for Team Dignitas if they get it.
And right now we're seeing a difference in terms of jungle position. Chaser's on the bottom side of the map, threatening that low turret. Inori's top side going for the blue buff to try and take that away. And he'll have a good idea of where Chaser is now because he's not on this top side at all.
Yeah, I do think it's a little interesting that Keane has gone tier to Abyssal Scepter. A lot of times you will see the Negatron Cloak sat on with a Lost Chapter for even more mana on Cassiopeia with Wish to Spam. And with the blue buffs being denied by Keane, that could potentially bite him and swing that lane back in Ryu's favor, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's interesting because it might be a Chaser synergy as well for some extra magic damage when the Nidalee jumps in for a gank. But these are just small things. You definitely want all of that mana you're talking about from the Lost Chapter. The resets on kills, too. You get some extra mana in there. And Inori's run down to the bottom side. The guy bought Mobility Boots first item to just run around the map and get to these places faster.
Being as much of a support as he can be in that jungle role this game with the redemption, with the mobility boots. I mean, that's generally the plan on Ivern. Get all the support items, just make it so it's impossibly difficult to kill your teammates between the shields and the heals and the trigger seeds and Daisy. Ssumday getting himself grabbed by Zig, but I don't really see that fight going a whole lot of anywhere. Drake is live for the second time this game, though. Although it is Cloud, so priority is going to be less than it was first time around.
Yeah, here comes Ryu roaming down from the mid lane. He'll find a control board. If he actually went through there, he actually just went for a fake right there that he was possibly roaming. And there's this stat internally that's nicknamed the Ryu stat, and it's how much time in the first 15 minutes you spend past the halfway point, past the river. And Ryu is #1 for all mid laners. When he was in Europe, #1 for all mid laners. This split at 26% of his first 15 minutes he spends on the enemy's side of the map because he's just so pushed up. He likes the option to roam. It might get him killed or ganked, but it usually makes it so that he can roam to side lanes much faster than the enemy mid laner.
Toss with a 2,000 gold lead, but playing things very patiently. Like we mentioned with Phoenix1, sort of trying to force things, make things happen when they might not be ready to happen. Dignitas, despite the fact that they're ahead, seems comfortable allowing the game to just continue until they find that window.
Yeah, and the setup around the Drake will actually be fairly important because this is an opportunity for Phoenix1 to actually get the picks. Even though Team Dignitas has a gold lead and would theoretically win in a heads-up 5v5, if they don't have vision control, Phoenix1 have all the tools to catch odd-numbered fights, and that's why they're proactively going around to set up on this Cloud Drake.
Yeah, if you don't have established vision ahead of time, your support has to walk up, but he can't walk up alone, and then you don't know if they're even doing it, and you can get picked.
And this is a little bit strange because Inori smote Raptors and is now doing Cloud Drake's Smiteless. The thing with Ivern, though, is the brush still hides epic monsters, so it's still ridiculously difficult to steal. And Team Dignitas has not set up the vision control in the river and have actually kind of lost control of this game a little bit. So gold lead be damned, Phoenix1 has control.
Phoenix1 taking the Drake, no contest. Chaser doesn't get himself in there in time to even toss a spear, try to go for a steal. Movement speed going the way of Phoenix1. Inori hanging around mid lane, just making sure everything's going to be okay there for Ryu, who has to pop his ghost. Chaser flings out a spear, but won't find anything with that one. Just kind of going fishing. Meanwhile, Stunt and Arrow in the bottom lane. Still down about 20 CS, but that hasn't worsened much in time. Plus, we play to the Ruined King up. The Ashe still a threat in these fights.
Yeah, but it's an 1,100 gold lead for Laud, and he's going towards that Trinity Force. He almost has that completed. That's an enormous spike as well, where he already has the Muramana on top of it.
Uh-oh. Ryu nearly killed off there. A stun just in time to keep Keane away from grabbing that kill.
Yeah, Keane went all in there. Went for a flash, too, to try to make a play.
Look at that redemption coming from the jungle into the bottom lane. Have to note that Arrow did shoot ultimate at Xpecial and burned the flash from Xpecial, which is why Team Dignitas is trying to make an aggressive play in this bottom lane. And this is what they've needed to do for the past 7 minutes. When they had that gold lead in the bottom lane on Ezreal and as a poke composition, they need to set up shop outside of turrets and start demolishing some of these turrets. The fact that they've had this lead and first turret has still been up is Team Dignitas not pressing their lead.
Yeah, Laud can actually just walk up with the Sheen and get some auto attacks, but they're so scared of doing this.
Can't push past Ivern right now. He's hiding everything in brush, and now the Daisy to knock it up Xpecial.
Wild Growth has to be used, just keeping Xpecial alive here.
Ryu's gonna get here first.
Forward, able to find a binding. Ryu working their way into the fight. Dignitas trying to get out of this one. It's gonna be used. Chaser in some trouble. Killing spree for Ryu. Lot gonna be locked down next. More damage coming through. See you later. Stunt grabbing a kill. And that is 2 for Phoenix1 and make it a turret 2.
And that's what Phoenix1 wanted with this team composition. CC chains that are inescapable with numbers advantages.
Yeah, Keane backed, Ryu pushed, went down bottom, got there first, hit an amazing stun, and then just followed up, burst through the Shen shield, so he couldn't show up either. And now they're going to actually push for another turret here and try to get this one.
Yeah, at this point of the game, it accelerates, though, because since they sent 5 bottom and Team Dignitas didn't necessarily match, Ssumday continued to push top. Keane decided to push in mid, but none of those turrets have fell yet. Probably going to see the top side. Still a 2-turret-to-1 advantage on top of the team fight win.
So close no matter how far. Dignitas will at least get this 1 turret like you just said, but having that bottom lane turret so low for so long and then giving away turret first blood to your opponents is such a defeat.
And Jatt talked about it where this is what you should be doing as Dignitas, but this ends up being the siege is actually a bait here. They have a ward behind that Zig TPs to, and then they're able to engage.
Yeah, the trickiest thing here that turns it is actually the Ryu roam more than anything, because Keane was back in base as Team Dignitas was making this push, and when they were with the CS lead in all 3 lanes, they need to be able to apply that pressure equally so that every roam is felt and noticed. They did not notice Ryu coming down while they were pushed up, therefore they couldn't retreat fast enough.
And now they get a rotation to the top side. This will be an unanswered turret here after theirs went down on the top, so P1 up 3-1.
Yeah, really kicking into high gear after that move, and now the pick composition becomes that much more lethal, with the Ludens completed onto Ryu before real magic resist items have been completed on the squishier targets of Team Dignitas, which they just drove through the bottom lane.
And with that extra damage, there also comes extra defense. Locking the Iron Solari for Inori, whose redemption plus that together makes it that much more difficult to get the damage Dignitas needs to get onto these P1 players.
And these blue buffs for Ryu are just hilarious. He's getting it pretty much 100% uptime this game. It's just every single one. They're taking the enemy one, handing it to him, and giving their own all the time. They're actually going to save this bottom lane turret too.
Strength of having the Ivern on your team, so much incredible buff control. Making sure that you're securing your own, stealing the enemies. You're almost always going to be playing a buff down against that guy unless he's incredibly far behind. But speaking of far behind, Phoenix1, a team that spent 10 minutes, 2,000 gold down, now has about a 1,000 gold lead. The massive swing that came from that play bottom lane has really put them in the driver's seat here.
Exactly, and now it's a matter of setting up shop with their poke and pick, but Zig can't get caught out like this. How well can Team Dignitas capitalize? It's Lot's dead.
Dignitas have lost their AD carry. The arrow's not going to be finding anyone, but the chain CC just does not stop Chaser, barely getting himself away. They continue trying to hunt down Xpecial.
Root Collar
finds its way in, and they are grabbing the enemy support as well. The bot lane down, still going to be in some danger. Keane gets the kill through the poison. Dignitas seeing what else they can find as Phoenix1 retreats. It's a 2-for-1 at the end of the day.
Ryu doesn't care if you're 1,000 gold up as an AD carry. He's going to destroy you. Lot has 4 deaths in this game. He started off on a really good foot, but the Syndra is making an AD carry 2017 all over again.
Yeah, his lead is gone as well.
Don't forget the flow.
He started 1-0-1 and has moved to 1-4-3. So we talk about 14 Dignitas to win. Their carries who get the gold need to be able to convert that gold into advantages, and that did not happen early on into this game. Lot and Xpecial, with the 1,500 gold combined lead between their AD and support, could never push through that turret, thanks to Phoenix1's focus on stopping that. On top of that, they're turning it around, but this is now a quick Desperation Baron play.
A dig Baron, but this is going to be one of those good ones here.
Stunt's just meandering around. He's going to see it, but no one's in range
do anything in time. He's going to try and go for some kind of a miracle steal. Nope. Chaser's got the smite on lockdown, and Dignitas will take the 27-minute Baron.
Good call.
It's a fast reaction.
Themselves in this game and in a very nice spot compared to where they were just a moment ago.
And they've been having some really great Baron calls. The execution around them hasn't been perfect, but that one right there, very clean, able to pick it up. And then Ryu.
Yeah, he had so many orbs stacked beforehand. He landed the W and the R, and I think he was level 15 or 16, but Lod without magic resistance on a low level falls right there.
Yeah, he was
Poor
15.
Guy.
Got himself a Hexbinker immediately afterwards. Yep. Like, let's try to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Try to prevent the R insta-kill from Ryu, who's been doing just a great job of controlling this AD carry so far. 7-5 for P1 as they collect their 3rd elemental Drake of the game. That's going to be 2 Clouds and an Infernal. Gold dead even between the squads. Dignitas still with Baron.
Something curious, I was just noticing Inori hasn't upgraded his trinket. So he's keeping the long range Red, I feel like there's no reason to do that.
No.
I feel like that's just nerfs.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason is you can sometimes scout a brush from a little bit further away, but you need to upgrade that thing after level 9, and he's definitely had the opportunity to.
Yeah, and this is actually not something that's uncommon with Inori. I remember him putting 2 points into Rek'Sai E, and even like, oh, hold on, for the pick.
Dignitas getting themselves away just fine for now. Ssumday trying to find the opportunity to maybe look for a re-engage here as they push up with the Baron. They've got the poke. Daisy summoned up to just sort of body block some of these spears. Keane in some trouble. More stuns come through. The chain CC starts off, but the chain will not be completed. Zig now going to be jumped on. Ssumday getting himself back. Phoenix1 goes right back in for even more. Ssumday and Zig, though, both incredibly tanky as Ryu's down below half HP, still has ultimate up.
Yeah, and the actual 5v5 still get a little sketchy for Phoenix1, especially when they're trying to go in. You can see how difficult it is to break through these Team Dignitas shields, who are now pushing back at him 5v5.
Daisy's still trying to defend this, but he's going to be going down. She's going to be going down. That thing is gone, whatever it is. The health bar evaporates, and the Dignitas push continues. This Baron buff doing a lot of work for these guys. Along with that Shen Spirit's Refuge, you're seeing what Ssumday is getting from that.
Yeah, it's a super good Baron call because we talk about how this team wants to siege. They absolutely want this Baron buff, and they even have the option later on that if they get it again, Ssumday can split push in a side lane with his double global. So this team really wants that buff. And when they got it off of that, they just get this turret in the mid lane. I think I control, too, of the jungle, and we'll take it on their way out.
Had to run a little bit because they did not have the time to finish off blue, but it still goes to show that this game is far from over. Phoenix1 had taken back some of the objectives. The Baron take by Team Dignitas equalized the gold, allowed them to come right back in there, and now it will still be about whether or not they can avoid getting picked off with odd numbers, because if they have everyone there for a 5v5 initiation from Phoenix1, they can probably withstand it.
You can see a little bit of itemization differences coming out between the AD carries now as Last Whisper picked up the Laud, realizing he's going to have to punch through Zig. Needs to make sure that he can do that in a semi-efficient manner. Runean's Hurricane for Arrow with a quick Silver Sash to get out of some of the big CC potential from both Ssumday and Keane.
Yeah, and Arrow looks like he's also going for third item, Black Cleaver, Nash build that you constantly stack up the armor penetration, and when you use the Q, Ranger's Focus, it's actually a stack per little tick of Ranger's Focus. So you actually put about 5 stacks on somebody every hit.
Very, very effective, especially with that Runean's Hurricane. You can shred the armor of multiple targets multiple times at a time.
Yeah. And Banner of Command here too. 4 top lanes, so Zig is the one that has that.
Yeah, Laud's still going to be able to pick that through a pretty ineffectual first shot of the banner. It's not a terrible Nautilus item though. It gives you a little bit of CDR as well as just base stats, so the extra minion can just be icing on the cake occasionally.
Just a bit unorthodox, that's all.
I think it's mainly because they already have a locket. So if Zig is used to building an Aegis type item in his Nautilus builds, it's actually not bad to throw the banner in there.
Yeah, you also have a way to kind of moderately answer split push from Ssumday. It's not that great, but it's still something that at least shoves waves out if you're getting the split push. Because Zig also 2 levels down on Ssumday, who's been doing a great job with the double globals of still being up in CS and just kind of bullying these lanes.
Ssumday doing a good job for his team so far, being that front line. The Spirit's Refuge, like we mentioned, was something that enabled them to push, take those turrets down, just make it so that they couldn't answer him on the side of Phoenix1. And when you look at what Phoenix1 has, we were kind of talking about this during Champion Select. The CC is there, but the damage is the question. I mean, you've seen Ryu delete Laud from the fights, but in terms of taking out somebody like Ssumday, it's a hell of a chore.
Exactly, and that's one dangerous game Ssumday is going to have to play here, because right now, he is pretty much the unkillable front line. There is no armor penetration from Arrow. Ryu is burst heavy and does not have enough burst to kill Ssumday. So if Ssumday's sitting in front, Phoenix1 can't really have a full team fight. But as a Shen, you want to be pressuring the side lanes so that your team is just not getting overall out-pressured. So he's got to be very careful, at least the other 4 have to be very careful, to not get picked off while Ssumday is away.
Absolutely.
Or for Ssumday to get picked off while his team is away.
Zig looking for Ssumday here as more reinforcements are on the way from Phoenix1, but they decide to back away immediately, realizing they're not going to get him in time.
Looking for a pick here. Keane will be the first one to show. But,
oh, there with the trigger seed. Can he set up the shot?
Keane has cleanse though, so
yeah,
even if
really
they ran at him.
Yeah.
that was not a good ultimate try there from Phoenix1. The last time they Ashe aired, they did burn, cleanse, and flash, and that's what prompted the fight afterwards because they thought they'd be able to kill him when he's lacking summoner spells. But this time, Arrow in the front line landing the Ashe arrow with no follow-up is not even going to burn the cleanse. Props to Keane for not using cleanse on that Ashe arrow.
I feel like this game becomes scarier and scarier for Phoenix1 as it goes on because Keane is going to get incredibly scary. I think that this guy right now is in a great position in this game. He's not in Ryu's position where he has all of his burst, but the late game Cassiopeia is a gigantic threat. They've been blowing up Laud and then trying to deal with Keane afterwards, and that seems to be the game plan that they'll try to continue to go with. But Keane, see if he stays alive, because if his positioning's on point, he will make and break these fights.
Good job from Phoenix1, making sure that they grab that 5th turret of the match, the second tier 2 they've managed to take down. Only 1 turret left standing for Team Dignitas outside of their base. And usually to crack those base turrets, you know that you've got to get some kind of a Baron or some kind of a big team fight, or practically impossible to brute force him down. Zig making his way back towards the bottom lane to deal with the Ssumday split push. Teleport available for both these top laners as Ryu pressures onto the inhib turret.
Yeah, nobody's here to answer Ryu, so he'll actually get a decent amount of HP here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Team Dignitas is prioritizing getting this Mountain Drake for pressure around Baron, which tells me they are committing to kind of face-checking in here, and this is the most dangerous point they've had yet in the game. Phoenix1, I feel like after they see that Mountain Drake go down, would want to get vision immediately, but it looks like they're out of control wards, so they can't get the appropriate amount of setup. They're recalling to pick them up again, and Team Dignitas gets that Mountain Drake unpunished.
Yeah, also Arrow able to complete the Black Cleaver, so wanted to back before a team fight so that he has that crucial penetration item.
And that's huge, since they need to be able to have some way of cutting through Ssumday. Remember, their damage is very low overall in comparison to the sustained damage they're going to be able to get out of Cassiopeia and Ezreal.
Baron aggroed by Ryu there to make sure that it gets just a little bit extra onto Ssumday, but between his own shields and the shields from Xpecial, it just doesn't even hurt him at all. We're actually starting to see a few different players hit those massive item points where they've only got a little bit left to complete. 4 different items completed onto Keane's Cassiopeia. Very scary in these fights. The Mortal Reminder fully done for Laud. Not only going to be penetrating the armor, but stopping some of the healing as well. Arrow always going to be looking for those arrows. That time you do pop the cleanse. That time he has to go.
Yeah, and even that arrow was while Ryu was getting a blue buff, so it's almost like that arrow was just there to proc the cleanse.
Yeah.
Zig may look to get a different type of pick onto Keane now.
And the fact that Arrow has the Black Cleaver means that the arrow will come off down faster, but this is going so quickly here. They have to go now.
Here we go. Dignitas starting up the Baron down to 1/3 HP. Into the fight goes Daisy. T1 trying to make their attack right here. Xpecial going to be taken low. Blue team is slain Baron Nashor. That's going to be Chaser. Dignitas grabs their objective. What else can they find? Ssumday going to be losing the Guardian Angel. Phoenix1 still looking to fight more if they can. They can't let Dignitas get away from this one for free.
Keane went over the wall.
Low, flashing over the wall. Ssumday trying to get himself out as Xpecial is the only casualty so far.
Everybody scatter is the call for
Run
Team
away.
Dignitas.
Keane flashed over the wall to avoid Stunt flashing forward, but then he also had the Shen ultimate on him, which means that your front line is actually abandoning you.
Your front line's now going away too.
Yeah, and that setup was less than ideal by Team Dignitas, but it definitely worked out because Chaser won the Smite War over Inori right there. Only suffer 1 casualty and no turrets while getting the Baron.
That Smite outcome was just absolutely massive. Getting the Baron and losing your support, that feels great. Losing a Baron and your support, that's a throw.
Not to mention the extended fight they had afterwards. They're empowered by the attack damage and the ability power from the Hand of Baron buff. But watching this, I mean, that Baron was at 4,000 health when Phoenix1 was approaching, but they still make a call to burst it, which then lowers their team fight potency even more. This is how strong and how hard it was to take down Ssumday.
Yeah, and Ryu actually blows the ultimate to kill Ssumday. Keane is off on the right side, being basically just held by Zig. Also, Inori's focusing him down, trying to keep that Cassiopeia locked up. And so the target selection there from P1 also seemed a little bit frantic, where there were 2 people who were definitely in the pit and very vulnerable.
All right, boys. Dignitas Baron up and running for the second, well, second time now. Seeing what they can find.
Knight's Vow from Inori onto Arrow, so he'll be taking some of his damage now too. There's the Arrow.
Keane! He's got no way out. This time he's going to be in some trouble. Wild Growth comes down. Spirit's Refuge trying to defend. He's not going to be doing anything with that one. P1 looking to make more happen if they can. Zig lumbering forward. wants to chase these guys down, but Phoenix1 have their chance.
Yeah, try again. They finally get the CC chain kill onto Keane when his flash and his cleanse were down, as well as being able to not have Ssumday tanking in the front line since the turret was preventing him from flying forward.
Exactly. They actually knew where he was, too. Arrow off on the side got hit by a spear right before, throws out the arrow, and it's slightly masked, and then it hits Keane, and then they're able to just follow up. They have to chase him a little bit, but even through everything.
Big wave top side, inhibitor turret breaks, and Phoenix1 is onto the inhibitor itself. Blade of the Ruined King gonna be used. Ssumday not exactly feeling super tanky anymore against that Ashe.
Yeah, the Last Whisper and Black Cleaver is a tremendous amount of shred from Arrow, as well as the quick stacking from Black Cleaver we talked about earlier. Phoenix1 successfully make the proactive play against the Team Dignitas Baron, pretty much equalizing that buff entirely.
Dignitas has Baron, and they lose the first inhibitor of the game 39 minutes in. Not what they wanted to accomplish with that buff. The Baron power play final tally is going to be very interesting because it's going to be very disappointing if you're a Dignitas fan.
Yeah, Keane, who had previously used his flash to get over the wall, was the big target there, and he had been playing really well throughout the game until that moment where he was a little bit too far forward. That cost them that inhibitor and that positioning.
There's the banner coming in.
Yeah, the banner's going to be really hard to deal with the Cassiopeia.
It's a slight nuisance.
Just a little bit. Cassiopeia's still got some auto attacks.
Yeah. Elder Dragon up in 55 seconds, though.
Very juicy for P1. Dignitas, still a decent buff for them, but also very concerned about keeping it out of Phoenix1 hands.
Yeah, and if we're looking about who needs to step up to carry this game, it's Keane right now. He has a large amount of farm. The Knight's Vow has been completed on Ssumday. I hope that gets thrown on Keane to give him that little bit of extra durability. The shield stacking that he can get is pretty immense between the Lulu, the Shen, as well as his Seraph's Embrace. And Phoenix1 doesn't necessarily have the best access to him to try and run through the fight. So it's not going to be Laud. He's fallen pretty far behind in this one. Still hasn't completed Blade of the Ruined King for that tank killing ability. It's got to be Keane.
Baron power play, negative 129 gold for Dignitas, showing that it didn't work out too well for this team. Now with Baron down for the next few minutes, they've got to find some way to make something happen without it, or just wait it out. Nice spear onto Arrow, but not going to be followed up with anything yet immediately. Zig walking himself back. True Shot Barrage going to be coming through. Redemption comes down. Kane's going to be in some trouble. Glenn's not going to be getting him out of the shield immediately, but Stunt's going to be stunned up. Chase is able to grab one kill. Zig's going to be going down next. The damage coming out from Ryu is not enough, and Phoenix1 is in full retreat.
But they only get the one kill as they can't chase too far through, but you got to see the thousands of health of shields that flew onto Keane as they tried to engage on him, and the one kill they're able to get before this potential Elder Drake. But boy, they have to get back to their base. They need to reset.
Yeah, Stunt didn't even get to blow his ultimate there. He was trying to walk up and just got CC'd, and they're losing their base.
Minions, baby. Taking down next to turret number 1.
Oh wow, P1's on this fast.
As Inori and Arrow are saying, hey, you know what? They got to answer the base. Why don't we just look to take this down instead? Zig goes over the wall. TP's going to be used. This is going to be a big fight.
Elder Drake is hidden right now until they can get a ward inside of it, but they pull away because they need to reset from the fight still. This is the game.
Rushes are still there. Oh, this fight is going to be all over the place, gentlemen. Everybody dancing around.
Yep, they're waiting for Stunt. They're buying time for Stunt. They're not actually doing any damage to this right now and just holding off, waiting for a pick.
They're also waiting for the super minions to reaccrue onto the Nexus turrets. There's only one Nexus turret there, so Team Dignitas has to go now.
Dignitas moving, but Stunt has made his way into the fight. Zig wants the dredge line onto anyone that's not named Ssumday. Daisy has been brought back into the fight now as well. Dignitas keeping their distance. Elder Drake continuing to auto-attack.
Where's this arrow going to come from Arrow? If it hits Keane, it'll lock him up.
If you're Phoenix1, you actually fully disengage. You want the Elder Drake to reset because your super minions will kill a turret. That's why Team Dignitas is going back in.
Oh, Phoenix1 still looking to try to fight this one. Arrow comes up the wall, not going to be finding its way onto lava. They're able to find the rampage onto the enemy jungler. The dragon is secured by Ssumday of all people, but the kill comes out onto Keane. Ssumday going to be going down next. Blood trying to snipe out Phoenix1 players. He gets the kill into the AD carry, but he will fall regardless. Xpecial and Ssumday now fighting the enemy top lane and jungle combination.
Back fast right here.
A wet noodle war as Xpecial keeps himself alive. More redemption's coming out. This is never gonna end, Zirene. It's never gonna stop yet.
It's the two OG P1 members trying to fight Elder Dragon up Dignitas guys.
Zig and Inori chasing them down. Lulu's not getting away today.
Daisy's up.
Daisy again into the fight. The blast cone to try to get Ssumday away from this one. Are the roots gonna be called? Nope, okay, yep, he got it. All right, continue hitting it for 30 damage.
I imagine they're trying to stop him from getting back to base, and look at the minion wave that's killing the mid lane turret right now that they're trying to ask for assistance on. What a ridiculous series of events.
Yeah, and now they have to clear out their base on Dignitas' side. That middle turret looks like it's gonna go down. It is, and this inhibitor has pressure on it. Baron on the table. Every member of P1 is up. Xpecial not for 20 seconds.
Yeah, and also Baron is up right now while Xpecial is dead, which is why Phoenix1 should have probably tried to reset that one a little bit sooner. You see Inori's not the first one to the pit. He should be, based on what happened in that. He just capped his build out with an Ardent Sensor as well. So I'd love to watch that replay again and dissect it, but we don't have time because they need to immediately go towards
back
Baron.
into the fight.
And these fights take like 7 minutes to play out because they're all tanks slapping each other.
You see, like, Xpecial with 2,000. That's not from the beginning of it.
5,500 damage. Ssumday did the most damage in the fight as a Shen.
But here we go. They're pressuring the Baron, having vision denial. If they can get a control ward inside that as well, it's almost impossible to get vision.
Baron down to half.
I like this too. This goes back to champions. Like, they took the Ashe
Stunt
and the
the board.
Ivern so that you can't check this with a hawk shot or anything.
Ssumday on the front line, totally
And
fearless.
Keane!
Arrow onto Keane, who cleanses it away, but now that's not available.
That's huge. Zig has ultimate. He presses that on
Zig
the
goes in, he goes fishing, and he finds himself one. Now the attack continues. Xpecial gonna be stunned up. Miasma comes through. Phoenix1 back themselves away. Baron gonna be resetting, healing up.
Mid.
Is
P1
mid
want
the
to
call?
They want to clear it so that they have pressure on an inhibitor here, and that will force Dig members to take a long route around, and somebody will have to go here. It looks like it's Ssumday, so it won't actually be too much pressure.
Every moment in this game could be the one that decides who walks away with the win. Goes up on the 1-0 advantage in the best of 5. Phoenix1 backing away.
Yeah, and things like the Ashe Arrow cool down faster than the cleanse on Keane. Keane additionally is getting very close to that Rabadon's death cap, which will really push up his damage and may push them over the edge in these fights. But as we saw, it's razor thin.
Yeah, it's a 24-second cooldown on the Ashe Arrow. It's a 210 on the cleanse for Keane. And it might be interesting if he ends up going for something like a QSS instead of a Rabadon's. Well, sorry, after the Rabadon's, instead of the control wards.
Mikhail's being completed, though, actually.
Yeah, that's actually good.
Makes it so his cleanse being off cooldown makes it even easier to save him.
Makes it harder to pick, much harder to pick.
Going back to what we were talking about nerves earlier, gentlemen, 46 minutes into the game when one mistake could mean the game. Nerves could be big. Ssumday going in, Spear coming out, Arrow having to make sure he's safe. Ssumday eating a lot of damage here, though. Wild Growth to keep him alive. Guardian Angel not available.
Yeah, Arrow aggressively positioned right there. Lots of faith in his positioning, as well as the shields he can get from full build Ivern right now, who's doing a lot of protection.
USS also off cooldown. So if Arrow does find himself stunned up, you can utilize that to get out of trouble a little bit.
Yeah, with the minion wave bottom, they know that's going to pull
this.
Shen, so they're going to go.
They might do this faster than they can arrive. Well, actually, it'll be right in time. Chaser is there.
Don't kill it that fast.
Ssumday's going to have to stand united into this fight. Chaser has the shield. Wants to potentially go in. Baron's going to be disengaged on. Phoenix1 backing themselves away. Arrow with limited mana.
She's going to take
2/3 HP as well. Redemption coming down. Dignitas in the Baron pit. Looking to maybe steal this one away if they can. Ssumday going to be soaking the auto attacks. Zig now in there too. Redemption coming out to the other side. Chaser's going to be killed. And Ssumday might just be number 2. Phoenix1 looking to make even more moves. Keane is gone. 3 dead on Dig. Phoenix1. Can they make it 4? Lod now going to be bursted next. Xpecial hooked right back into the fight. Barely keeping himself alive. He drops. Lod's got to try to get himself away here, but there you go.
And Team Dignitas move in to try and disrupt the Phoenix1 Baron. Instead of resetting the fight, they engage again on the Baron, and that's going to cost him the game.
Patience makes perfect sometimes.
And Ryu with the perfect setup there, throws down, kills Keane in a combo, and then that's going to be game.
Phoenix1, it took a while for them to get here. The start of the game was a little bit rocky, but they will go up 1-0 to kick off this best of 5.
And this is so close. The game ends with Dignitas still up 400 gold.
Yeah, we talked about needing to step up and the pressure of the playoffs and how will these players recover. We got to see a lot of that in this first game. Lod started the game very well, was ineffectual in the late game team fights. On the other side, you got to see Inori and Stunt have some pretty bad starts, but pretty strong finishes there on a 3-1-13 Ivern performance, with the game centering around those objectives with which Ivern can control.
And we talked about the potential of the redemption story for the Ivern on Inori. Talked about how the last time he played it, it wasn't that great of a pick. It didn't work out for him. 3-1-13, keeping the team alive, providing extra CC in that chain. He did his job.
Yeah, he has 16 out of the 18 in terms of kill participation. They're highest on the team. Inori actually did a lot of work on that Ivern. As the Ivern expert,
Yeah.
what grade would you give him?
Yeah.
What's he get?
We don't have the system right here.
Wait, you're the
3-1-13
system.
with low CS gives him like an A-, generally
A-.
speaking. That's the way the system works.
Support life. Unlucky, dude.
A 47-minute game, you need like 40 assists to get an S. That's the way it works.
Well, this is the Jatt system. You're allowed to fix those oversights.
No, I'm just by the book.
Well, either way,
it's so close.
Either way, it was a great win from Phoenix1. And for more on it, we're going to go ahead and toss things over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We thought it was going to be a close series. Game one definitely points to it following that trend. Only 400 gold separating these teams when the Nexus actually explodes. But I want to start from the beginning because we kind of prepped it with some thoughts about how this series might play out. And in particular, champ select-wise, I want to look at the Ivern pick from Inori because this completely contradicts the play style that we've seen out of him for almost the entirety of his LCS career.
So yeah, this isn't the specific pick I was expecting. I was expecting Phoenix1 to actually bring some new picks because they talked about part of the decision-making for the subs that they chose were due to champions that they played in the upcoming week or weeks leading up to this. I did not expect them to do an Inori Ivern, and even though they did and they definitely have practiced it, it looked like this is something they had success on because they put 3 bans all into jungle, and Dignitas also put 2, so there was a total of 5 jungle bans, and they were pretty ready to go with the Ivern. There were still a lot of little things that you would point to and be like, okay, he still has some more to work on, but as far as going for the supportive jungler, if they talked about learning from Meteos and trying to be more of a team player, Ivern is a champion that makes you be a team player jungler. You can't steal buffs, and you also can't steal lane farm because you can't CS.
And Skara, if you've got Arrow on your team, you want to be picking up Ivern to support him in that mid to late game when you know he'll go off, right?
Right. I mean, just look at his build. He went Knights, Vow into Ardent Sensor, Grail. Like, usually you'll go like maybe half or maybe like 3/4 of that build, but he went into the Sensor, which makes him really squishy as a champion, which is why it was really good of them to have Nautilus to make sure that they can keep that buff, like tanky frontline, while having a more utility-oriented support rather than like a kind of tanky frontline Ivern.
Right, a lot of resources going into helping Arrow carry in the late game. Of course, the early game for the bot lane of Phoenix1, though, didn't go entirely well. We were looking at this 2v2 saying this might be the exploitable part of Phoenix1 here in the early game.
This play right here, we were all just like, Stunt, what? Even the flash, he could have easily flashed it. You can try and dodge backwards, maybe like, the dodge backwards would be too risky, but the full range mid-spear
no excuse to not
flash up, yeah.
And honestly, Stunt was a hook, like a magnet for skill shots this game. Like, even going into the mid-late game when they were seeking top lane, he got hit with so much poke. Like, I felt really bad because it just felt like he walked into them sometimes.
Right, so 2 kills go over there in the first gank down to the bot lane from Dignitas. Now, Phoenix1, to a degree, starts forcing plays back in the bot lane against the Shen team.
And I think this is just such a standard mistake, right? If you're playing against Shen, you gank the Shen lane or you gank the mid lane Syndra, which probably has enough burst to one-hit the other person instantly. And I think that going bot lane is really tough.
Yeah, this at that point, it was looking very poor for Phoenix1 and good for Team Dignitas. They were creating a lot of the wins off bottom side, but man, even though they didn't gank for Ryu, he created his own wins for Phoenix1 in the mid game. He was roaming around, picking up kills. Like, Ryu saved this game for them.
No, honestly, Ryu had a great game. This is one of the best games I've seen him play, period. And that's super weird that they needed their mid laner to have a standout performance for them to win this game. Like, I'm a little bit worried, to be honest, because they shouldn't expect Ryu to have to, like, all right, roam to kill the jungler, roam bot lane, and then solo kill the AD when he pushes up, and then, like, also go, like, and like control his wave and teamfight really well. Like, just look at the last teamfight. Like, I think that Ryu played outstanding. I'm hoping they don't need him to play at this level to win.
Yeah, Ryu getting Phoenix1 back into the game, and of course, this is in the face of Laud, who has built a 34 CS lead at 15 minutes. That's equivalent to 1,500 gold is what he was sitting on over Arrow. So again, in that 2v2, Dignitas definitely coming out on top with their focus towards the bot lane. Now, the thing is, we didn't see them push turrets down with the use of the Nidalee very early, and I think criticism we could throw there is that they didn't push their advantage as much as they should have here against a struggling P1 in the early game.
I think Chaser just killed himself too many times. Like he ran into the bottom side jungle, and it was just over-aggression, right? He wants to deny Ivern as much as he can, but how could he expect Ryu to be there? Like, he collapsed so quickly. He actually ghosted, almost instantly flashed to collapse to get the kill at level 5, and I think that really, like, neutered their ability to make plays, because usually you want the mid laner to roam bot lane as well, but Ryu was actually such a big threat that it was hard for them to get even the initial roam off.
Yeah, Ryu saves them in the early game. His team fighting late game was also really good. And then Arrow had some really clutch picks for them as well in the late game to really cement their victory. Man, those two players are the two guys that we did expect to carry this team kind of, though. So
let's take a look at our final replay here. This is in the bot lane, roam from Ryu as well as Zig. So again, focus towards the bot lane from Phoenix1, but this time they decided to bring all 5 members, so it doesn't matter if Shen tries to join.
Yeah, and this is great. Like, you look at the mini-map, Ryu is on his way, Cassio just back. And then the top lane TP, Ryu comes in for the collapse, and this cleans up into first tower and resets, like, kind of the bot lane deficit for them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
All members committing here. Stunt had a pretty good flash forward there for the roots, and it was actually all started off with Ivern. And the Daisy, no respect for Daisy here at the turret defense, allowed Daisy to stack up the autos to get the knockup off.
Again, that gold graph, not something you're going to be happy with if you're sitting on Dignitas' side of the rift. Just at that 20-minute mark, sitting with a nice, 2.5K gold lead with that, with the Nidalee, the ability to kind of push turrets and maybe take them down, you're going to be unhappy with the fact that you handed back that big fight in the bot lane. Important to note, though, both teams opting for no subs here going into Game 2. Dignitas has also chosen the red side, so we will be flopping sides here. Thoughts going into Game 2 about how Dignitas might respond to the loss, because for all intents and purposes, they were winning 90% of that game.
Even though I like reamed Dignitas a little bit for, like, jungle decision-making getting picked and, like, all that stuff, I think that their game plan was smart, It was like, okay, let's pressure bot lane, abuse Stunt, which seems like not to play super well with the bot lane, and get a lead there and break first tower there. It's just that they weren't able to execute, like, the tail end of that comment.
Yeah, and I have liked Chaser a lot recently. It's just that maybe a different jungle pick, or maybe they don't feed into the extra jungle bans coming through and get him on something like Elise, where he had a lot of success. I think that Chaser can bounce back in Game 2.
I think Nidalee is a super high execution-based jungler. Lyra, which is probably the best jungler in the league, only makes Nidalee work like 60–70% of the time. That's a champion that has no CC. It's all poke damage. I would like to see a different jungler. Like, again, if it's Elise, she could set up the plays a lot easier. They don't have to hope for, like, a perfect 5-man dive or 4-man dive to be able to break open the early game.
Game 1 was close, but Phoenix1 comes away with it. We're headed for a break, but when we come back, we've got Game 2 coming your way. When we return, see if Team Dignitas can bounce back against Phoenix1.
There's an attention bot. Stunt got hit. There. Stunt gonna be in some trouble here. Flashing away. The damage comes. TP.
Okay, nice. They cancel. Okay, fine.
Shield 3.
I go. Fine.
Syndra's coming. They can TP. Nice, back. Burst. Nidalee. Hey, back.
Okay, guys, good job.
The dragon is secured by Ssumday of all people, but the kill comes out onto Keane. Ssumday gonna be going down next. Claude trying to snipe out Phoenix1 players. He gets the kill into the AD carry, but he will fall regardless.
Go.
Ajay.
Okay, each other.
We can end.
Ezreal. All right. Ezreal dead. Oh, almost not dead.
Hey, we can end still.
We can Ezreal.
I'm gonna TP. I'll TP bot. Alright, I'll TP.
Good job, guys.
It's a knocking game, guys. Where should I TP?